January 6th, thousands of rioters, many coming from Trump's Save America rally, stormed the U.S. Capitol as Congress met to certify the 2020 presidential election results. The insurrection resulted in multiple deaths, including an officer, dozens of injuries to law enforcement and rioters, ongoing arrests, and vandalism across the Capitol. Here's how the day unfolded. That morning, thousands gathered at the ellipse near the White House to hear the president and his allies speak. Shortly before noon, President Trump addressed the crowd.
We will never give up. We will never concede. We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong.
Following his speech, the crowd then marched to the U.S. Capitol building, where initially only Capitol Police were stationed. Additional MPD officers would be called to assist by 1 p.m. At 12:53, a large crowd approached approximately 5 Capitol Police officers standing at a fenced-off entrance near the Peace Monument. According to ABC News sources that day, many Capitol Police were armed only with mace and their sidearms. As the crowd pushed the barricades over, the police were quickly overwhelmed. In contrast to other events in D.C. last summer, additional state and federal law enforcement was not pre-staged ahead of the riot. Within minutes, protesters began swarming other entrances to the Capitol, breaking through barricades and continuing to push further toward the building. Inside, Congress began their session with Vice President Pence presiding.
Are there any objections to counting the certificate of vote of the state of Arizona?
I will vote to respect the people's decision and defend our system of government as we know it.
During this time, explosive devices were reported outside the DNC and RNC headquarters. Meanwhile, rioters continued to surround the Capitol, taking photos and waving flags. One video shows rioters streaming past barricades with officers standing by. An audio message from around 2 p.m.
I mean, folks, we needed to play a recap of where we were as a country 4 years ago today. Welcome to Democracy-ish. I am Danielle Moodie.
And I'm Wajahat, and I won't be storming the Capitol today because I'm snowed in Virginia. But even if I wasn't, that's not how I would spend my January 6th. How about you, Danielle?
It's, not even a thought in my mind. It never crossed my mind that when, my candidate lost, to think to myself, you know what I'll do? I'll pack up my restraints and my tasers, put on my Old Navy fatigue outfit, maybe stop off at Party City, get some tiki torches.
Well, you can't do that anymore because Party City is closing down.
Exactly. Probably because, insurrection didn't do them the kind of sales that they needed. Like, I watched that video, Waj, and I still have chills. I remember standing in my kitchen looking at the television and my jaw being on the floor as I watched Americans try and overthrow an election.
Isn't your jaw still on the floor? Like, I was watching that video, and because we live in the United States of amnesia, we casually forget that it was just 4 years ago that a criminal, the former president, who got reelected thanks to a plurality of Americans who said, you know what? If it's between a Holocaust-quoting criminal who incited a violent insurrection or a competent Black Indian American woman, I'll go with the Holocaust. I'll go with the Hitler-quoting criminal. I mean, this dude was reelected. Even after that, Danielle, America's like, is it that bad? Is it that bad that a bunch of white, angry MAGA supporters, some of them with weapons, some of them carrying Confederate flags, some of them using the U.S. flagpole as a weapon against our law enforcement, invading the U.S. Capitol, breaking and entering, literally roaming around the U.S. Capitol looking to assassinate Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, smearing shit in the U.S. Capitol, our elected officials, including Republicans, literally praying for their lives, barricaded, protected by the police, and the fact that the guy who incited it, not just incited it, and I think this is important, Danielle, orchestrated it, right?
Mhm.
Deliberate, intentional, planned, done with complicity of not just Republican elected officials, but also malicious leaders like the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. When he told them to stand back and stand by, they took him literally and seriously. And police officers were not only just injured that day, one died, but later several of them killed themselves.
Yep.
And Laura Ingraham and Fox and others called them crisis actors, mocked them, ridiculed them.
Yep.
And later, Tucker Carlson began the conspiracy that this was a staged performance by the deep state. And now that day, and we just gave you a glimpse, folks, right? Because that whole video was done by, I think, ABC. It's really good. It runs
Mhm.
like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Fast forward 4 years, Republicans now say that that day, which revolts me. I looked at it now, it brings you back like the shock that this is what happened in America. Republicans call it a day of love. And the insurrectionists are going to be pardoned on day one by Donald Trump. Everything that I just said right now should infuriate you.
And it does, and it should. And a day of love. We just watched roughly 2 minutes of that 6-minute video. And to know that officers following that day took their own lives, know that the Republican Party uses law enforcement as their own privatized militia, and it only hails them when they are abusing, killing Black people, right? And other people of color in this country. Donald Trump will hail police officers as he did when he spoke during his presidency to officers in my home county of Suffolk County, New York on Long Island, when he said, go, feel free to rough them up. You don't have to be so nice when you're putting them in the back of the paddy wagon, because they see what law enforcement has always been, right? Which is it was born out of the slave patrol. How do you ever believe that something that was formulated in order to stop Black enslaved people from accessing freedom and bodily autonomy would ever result in something that is about policing and safety of communities? Because that's never what it was created for. So the Trump people, MAGA, look at law enforcement as what they were created to be, the enforcers of white supremacy. So the minute that they are not acting in lockstep with that foundational ideology of policing and law enforcement in this country, then they throw them out with the bathwater. And they say that they're crisis actors. They say that those men, that those officers and a woman who testified before the January 6th committee with tears, recounting watching their fellow officers be beaten and brutalized. And they laughed at them on Fox News. And I say, how can you be an officer, a public servant, and vote for these absolute fucking ghouls? But instead of Donald Trump facing a trial on January 20th, he is going to be standing on the very steps that he directed people to build a gallows on, and putting his hand back on the Bible and saying that he is going to defend the Constitution. It is the most ridiculous and just absolute representation of a dying empire that this is even fucking happening. Watch.
This is America. White supremacy dies hard and is violent and self-destructive in the end. I mean, he'll probably put a hand on a Trump Bible, that he'll turn around and sell on eBay along with sneakers and steak, and you think I'm being facetious? I am not. We now have Trump Bibles. I mean, it's good to be a rich, white, racist billionaire in America. You can commit a violent insurrection. You can try to meddle in the Georgia elections. You can steal documents and keep them in the shitter in your Mar-a-Lago resort. You can sexually assault a woman and defame her. And you can also engage in fraud, not just with your company to the point where you owe over $400 million in your home state of New York, but also through your charity. Yes, your charity is a means of committing fraud to the point where you have to pay millions of dollars. Also through your university, in which suckers thought, oh, Donald Trump, I'll sign up. Oops, I had no idea that he just took my money. And again, he had to settle through fraud. You can be this type of a debased criminal vulgarian who on camera, right, has incited a violent insurrection. We had January 6th hearings where MAGA Republicans, people who are part and parcel of his administration, are saying he knew he lost.
Yep.
We told him he lost.
Yep.
He went ahead and did this. He went ahead and threw Mike Pence under the bus. And I always bring this up because a lot of folks look at us and say, and I'm sure you've heard this, Danielle, I've been hearing this a lot recently, and I think this is going to tie up to a disturbing trend. It won't be that bad.
Yep.
We survived the first time around. It'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're exaggerating. You're melodramatic. You're hyperbolic. And I say, well, I give you Mike Pence, the whitest, most Christian, most conservative man on earth, who only eats dinner with mother and no other woman, who bent the knee, prostrated himself, literally gave up all of his dignity, becoming a barnacle on the side of Donald Trump because he had nurtured these hopes that maybe, just maybe, Donald Trump would go to jail or retire, and then me, Mike Pence, the crusader for God, will become president. And at the last second, folks, people don't know this interesting factoid. It was Dan Quayle, yes, Potato Dan Quayle, who consulted Mike Pence. Mike Pence will reach out to Dan Quayle and Justice Luttig, Luttig, I'm forgetting his name, but Justice Luttig has been on fire the last couple of years. Very conservative Republican. I mean, he's a Republican conservative judge who retired and who's turned on his party and has told them that, for the love of God, hold Donald Trump accountable. It was just Judge Luttig and Dan Quayle who told Mike Pence to do your job and certify the election. And at the last second, Danielle, Mike Pence is like, all right, I'll do it. So he did it. He certified the election. That's his job. You know why? Because he knew, like the rest of us, that President Joe Biden soundly defeated Trump by 4.4 percentage points, flipped 5 states. Have you heard that Donald Trump shellacked Kamala Harris, destroyed her? It was a mandate. Do you know how much he beat her by? 1.4%. Joe Biden beat him by 4.4%. So Mike Pence did the right thing, certified the election. And you know what Donald Trump did? Threw him to the wolves. Was perfectly fine with Mike Pence being hanged by that group that you just saw, that MAGA group holding a MAGA flag. So I bring this up because if you think to yourself, everything will be fine, I'm okay. I'm not a black queer woman like Danielle. I'm not a brown Muslim and a child of immigrants like Waj and Danielle. My name isn't Warbalat or Wajamalat or whatever Wajabalat's name is. My name is Tony. I'm Cliff. You're right. I'm the good one. Everything will be fine. I give you Mike Pence, Danielle. I give you the police officers. Even they were not protected by MAGA's wrath, because that's what happens in fascism. Whoever doesn't bend the knee, Danielle, becomes a threat. And that threat, even if it wears the stripes, even if it has the shiny police badge, even if it's a Mike Pence with mother, that threat has to be eliminated. So you think you're safe? Talk to Mike Pence.
And here's a couple of points to all of the great ones that you just made, which is that I refuse, like you do, to exist in fear. I am not going to live my life over the next 4 to however many years of this Trump MAGA regime will be in power in fear, because that is what they feed on. They are like gremlins. And They feed on this fear and the hopelessness that we can do nothing.
Yeah.
And what you have to understand, and I said this back in 2016 on Canadian television on election night, that the election of Donald Trump was white supremacy's last stand. And my addendum to that is that you do not know how long it will take for white supremacy to fall. But you have to understand that the reason why they are pushing as hard as they are is because more Americans are wide awake. More Americans are conscious to the fucking grift, which is why you were looking at the response to the United Healthcare murder and the applause to Luigi Mangione. More people are aware as they're watching celebrities post their cyber trucks over the holiday season. Look what I got. Look how amazing I am. How disgusting it is. How wide the wealth gap is in this country. Waj and I were talking before we came on air, folks, about the fact that here we are, recognizing that Waj's kids, my goddaughter, my nieces and nephews, right, are going to grow up in an America that is wildly different than the America that we grew up in. That what we understood as the land of possibility, as a place that was a broken blender, but nevertheless, you could have various communities and ethnic groups and races and orientations and identities living side by side with one another, that America is going to sound like a fairy tale to them. Yeah. Right? And you saw it in the face of the little boy of Gallego's son, Senator Gallego's son, who looked at Vice President Kamala Harris and said, I am so sorry that you did not win. And the little boy was emblematic of how we all feel in America right now, that it isn't just we're sorry you didn't win. We're sorry democracy didn't win. We're sorry decency didn't win. We're sorry morality didn't win. We're sorry progress didn't win. But the thing that we have to understand is that power never gives power away. It has to be taken. Paulo Coelho, author, said that in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, right? Power does not concede power. It has to be taken.
Yep.
And they are going to continue to move in the way that they are because they are preying on the fact that Americans will give up hope and just lay down and allow them to do what it is that they will. Because the crumbs that they leave behind for the few to pick up, they think will be enough nourishment. And we have got to understand, like Waj said, that 1% ain't anybody's fucking mandate. Okay? It is not.
Great quote from Frederick Douglass. You inspired me, and I had to find it in full. This is what Frederick Douglass, former slave, who read his autobiography, wrestled with his slave master, found a path towards emancipation, and then became one of the most powerful orators for abolition. This is exact quote. Quote, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. Frederick Douglass. That was in the 19th century.
I want to switch gears for a moment, just a moment, because we're quoting great men. And last night, Joe Biden published an op-ed in the Washington Post. What Americans should remember about January 6th. 4 years ago, our democracy was put to the test and prevailed. Honestly, there should not have been a period after prevailed. It should be a fucking question mark, because I'm not quite sure what he is celebrating right now. But let me go on. This is what Joe Biden wrote. Quote, We should be proud that our democracy withstood this assault, and we should be glad we will not see such a shameful attack again this year. But we should not forget. We must remember the wisdom of the adage that any nation that forgets its past is doomed to repeat it. We cannot accept a repeat of what occurred 4 years ago. An unrelenting effort has been underway to rewrite, even erase, the history of that day, to tell us we didn't see what we all saw with our own eyes, to dismiss concerns about it as some kind of partisan obsession, to explain it away as protest that just got out of hand. Waj, please.
So I saw this last night and I read it, and it was just like, it was Joe Biden writing a very unmemorable, short essay in the Washington Post of all places. I want to get to that in a second. And I just want to concentrate on that first line. We should be proud that our democracy withstood this assault. Really? Should we be proud, Danielle? Did our democracy withstand it? Did the institutions hold, Danielle? Because with Joe Biden, and we've criticized Joe, we've praised him when he deserves praise, and he has done some fantastic things in his presidency. I think in a few years, it'll be, we'll give him credit for some of the domestic accomplishments that Donald Trump will take credit for. But he is an institutionalist. He's all about restoration, not reform. He has this wide-eyed, romantic, halcyon gaze upon, America. Oh, America was a fantastic place. Oh, America, the shining beacon on the hill. Oh, the way Congress used to work. Me and Mitch used to have some, I don't drink. What do they have? Rum? What do they have?
Yes.
I keep saying rum because I've seen Pirates of the Caribbean. They don't have rum. What do they have? Bourbon? Bourbon. Sounds like a rich white man's drink, right? They slap each other on the back and they get deals done. And it's all a bunch of white dudes, right? And for the rest of us, for people like me and Danielle, we're like, America really wasn't that great for the rest of us, right? Like we always, like you said, it was a blender. There was some good, there was bad. We always wanted reform. And a person like Joe Biden, just like a person like Merrick Garland, just like, the Supreme Court, they're these rich, wealthy, privileged white folks who lived in America where they were on top and things were great. And they wanted to go back to those days, the good old days, Danielle. And did the institutions hold? The institutions that they told the children that they must fight for and defend. Talk to young people. Capitalism, it's awesome. And people are like, kind of sucks for me. I want to try out the socialism. Democracy, it's great. They're like, is it? I just lost my rights and I'm a woman. I'm 51% of the population. The Supreme Court, it is hallowed. The Supreme Court just gave Donald Trump a criminal absolute immunity for all his crimes. Law enforcement, it must be praised. Merrick Garland I think he's in a coma, and all these violent insurrectionists and criminals are getting away with it. But meanwhile, that poor dude who uses drugs isn't in jail, right? The institutions, Danielle, have not held. If they did, we wouldn't be in this situation. And if the institutions were so amazing, so worth defending, so worth restoring, going back to your point, would 70% of Americans, according to that Ken Klippenstein poll, be supporting Luigi Mangione, a man who targeted and killed the United Healthcare CEO? You tell me.
No. Like the answer to that question is no. And everything, like when Biden writes that line, right? We should be proud that our democracy withstood. You just listed out at least 8 ways that it did not survive. What does survival look like? That the building is still intact, right? Like that the actual White House and the actual Capitol building are still standing because the policies, right? What is actually embezzled on the Supreme Court, none of that is actually true anymore.
Nope.
Equality and justice for all. We have not, we are on a surfboard backsliding like, all the way back to the 19th century in this country. And so when you see Biden, this is his last fucking op-ed as president of the United States. And it was as milquetoast and weak as the majority of his fucking presidency has been. Because what I will say is that for the good things that Biden did, which they were many, the fact that Donald Trump is coming back in as your fucking successor shows you how much you fucking failed.
Right.
Because had you been successful, you would have been passing the baton to your vice president, Kamala Harris. And we would have been able to honestly say that democracy stood and that the people stood up for and protected, right? A government for and by the people. Instead, you're talking about in that same piece, Waj, I welcome the incoming president to the White House, and we know that we will have a peaceful transfer. Yes, of course it's going to be fucking peaceful because the insurrectionist won.
Yeah. They don't want to burn down the house while they're in it. They want to burn down the house when we're in it.
I just like I look at this, you know, and this is something that is incredibly important. Katie Fang posted this from the Wall Street Journal. 4 years ago, dozens of companies denounced the invasion of the U.S. Capitol and pledged to withhold support from those who disputed the 2020 election results. Now, many of those same companies are lining up to fund Trump's inauguration. Folks, hold on to your hats right here for this next slide. I want you to take a look at this. For when people say that every party takes money, and we know that that is true, I want you to look at Joe Biden's inaugural fund in 2021. Meta, $0. Tim Cook and Apple, $0. Sam Altman, $0. Google, $200,000. Amazon, $200,000. Donations to Trump's inaugural slush fund in 2025. Meta, $1 million. Apple, Tim Cook, $1 million. Altman, $1 million. Google, $1 million. Amazon, $1 million fucking dollars.
It's good to be part of the oligarchy. It's quid pro quo. They know how the game works. You have the most transactional, corrupt vulgarian who uses the Oval Office as his ATM. You want to protect yourself from taxes? You want to deregulate? You want to ensure that you're not in the Trump crosshairs? You want to ensure that you don't end up like Mike Pence or Paul Pelosi and get attacked by one of these nuts? You give them some money. You bend the knee. You bend both knees. You kiss the ring. You kiss both butt cheeks. You kiss the boot front and the boot heel. You do a dance. Trump says jump. You say how high. And speaking of all this money, Zuckerberg gave that 1 million. Bezos gave that 1 million. Tim Cook just pledged it a couple of days ago, that 1 million. Bezos and Zuckerberg then had dinner with Donald Trump. And you know who then crashed that dinner, Danielle? The richest man on earth, who has his fingerprints all over the Trump administration, has all of his grubby hands in all the cookie jars, Elon Musk. Elon Musk was also at that dinner with Donald Trump. And we've seen so far, Elon Musk is 2 for 2. When President Musk said, kill this spending bill, Donald Trump was roused from sleep and said, yeah, what Elon said. When Elon Musk said, I like H-1B visas, guess who did a 180 on their previous position? Donald Trump. And speaking about bending the knee, there was a great cartoon came out over the weekend by a former Washington Post editorial cartoonist. There you go, Ann Telnaeus. On point. And but I don't know if we have a photo of this cartoon. I hope we do. There you go. Check out this cartoon, folks. This is the draft of the cartoon that she submitted to the Washington Post. She's been cartooning for them since 2008.
Mhm.
She said in her Substack that Danielle just showed that she has never had a cartoon eliminated or scrubbed due to the content, right? It's probably like timing or she didn't feel good about it, but they never said, oh, this is too, this is too on point. This is too radical. So this is her cartoon. Mind you, Tim Cook is not in this cartoon because she drew it like a few days before Tim Cook also bent the knee. So I joked that she probably should have done a second draft and added Tim Cook. But the people that she has here are, it's Bezos of Amazon, it's Zuckerberg of Meta,
Mhm.
it's the owner of LA Times, another multimillionaire who, remember, didn't do the endorsement.
Yep.
Friggin' Mickey Mouse is completely prostrating Disney, and the CEO of AI, Sam Altman. This cartoon is literally a beautiful encapsulation of everything Danielle and I have talked about for the past 4 minutes in a single panel. This is what a good cartoonist does. Speaking truth to power, mocking those who are rich, right? Literally showing how they've not only bent the knee to a bust of the Trump, the pharaoh, also offering money. Literally, that's what they've done. Literally. So Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, for the first time ever, she's been there since 2008, scrubbed and eliminated this proposed cartoon. And go ahead.
I just want to say, I just wanted to offer, like, this is what she had written in their Substack. The cartoon that was killed criticizes the billionaire tech and media chief executives who have been doing their best to curry favor with incoming President-elect Trump. There have been multiple articles recently about these men with lucrative government contracts and an interest in eliminating regulations making their way to Mar-a-Lago. The group in the cartoon, as Waj laid out, included Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Sam Altman, AI, Patrick Soon-Shiong, LA Times publisher, the Walt Disney Company, and Bezos. And I think that, what is really important, and I just want to put up the cartoon again. And folks, go back to, look at the amount of money. We're talking $1 million a clip that these people are funneling, dropping at Donald Trump's feet. And we're going to get to something else in a moment that shows the parallels of what happened in 1930s Germany and how business is what propped up Hitler's regime to make it successful.
Yep.
Because again, it was not just about the people voting, right? This does not just fall squarely on our shoulders. Like, oh, the American people didn't do their jobs. Do you see what we're up against?
Yeah.
With the amount of money combined that these billionaires have in order to disregard the free press, in order to erase images, content that they don't like, in order to suppress algorithms so that you can't get the information that you're looking for. Right? Folks, like, this is not just, oh, well, people sat home. It's like those that were trying to receive the information necessary to make this most critical decision were up against literally, right? Goliath, like literally, you're looking at this. And so here is this article back from 2016. How big businesses bailed out the Nazis.
Right.
A tragic tale of what can go wrong when profits are entangled with politics. And this is what was written. Regardless of the party's financial problems, because they were damn near, folks, damn near broke the Nazi regime by the time that the German elections came around. Said Hitler, regardless of the financial problems, was named chancellor in late January 1933. He called for elections in early March. With less than 2 weeks left before the vote, Hermann Göring sent telegrams to Germany's 25 leading industrialists, inviting them to a secret meeting in Berlin on February 20th, 1933. Attending the gathering were 4 IG Farben directors and Krupp chief Gustav Krupp.
Gustav Krupp.
Hitler addressed the group saying, and I want you, because this has been said recently, private enterprise cannot be maintained in democracy. He also told the men that he would eliminate trade unions and communists. Hitler asked for their financial support and to back his vision for Germany.
Look, I got the receipts. I've been saying this for 8 years. I said the road to fascism will be paved by the establishment, corporate America, and the billionaires. And the reason I've been saying for 9 years is not because I'm a soothsayer. I'm not Brown Nostradamus. It's because I recall as a student of history that this has happened before. And the industrialists were utterly complicit with Hitler and the rise of Nazis in Germany. Without their money and without their backing, he couldn't survive, right? The first couple of years. And by the way history comes back and bites you in the ass, IG Farben and the Krupp directors, right? You know, a few of them later on after Hitler lost, you know what happened to them? They were at the Nuremberg trials, tried for war crimes. But some of these companies were able to rebrand themselves. People like Adidas, who, by the way, were also a German company, utterly complicit with the Nazi regime. Volkswagen, utterly complicit with the Nazi regime because, hey, don't let a genocide get in the way of some good profits. And when that quote, I'm so glad you read that quote, that private business cannot coincide with democracy. You know who believes that, folks, and openly says it? Peter Thiel, the billionaire who groomed J.D. Vance. Elon Musk, the guy who literally gave about $250 million to get Donald Trump into office, right? David Sachs, their other buddy from Stanford, billionaire from South Africa. This is the worldview of these billionaires who are these techno-determinists who believe that democracy cannot coincide with business and that democracy is a failed model and only the most talented people, and you could guess who those talented people are. Oddly, Danielle, these people do not have melanin as dark as you and me, and they don't have ovaries, and they aren't the middle class. Do you know who the most talented people are, whom they believe should be risen to the top and be given leadership over the rest of us? Do you want to guess?
Nepo babies?
Rich, white millionaires and billionaires like themselves. I'm not making any of this up, folks. In the next year, as more and more of this is unveiled, we're going to be talking about it. You think I'm crazy? I'm not. Musk, Sachs, Thiel, J.D. Vance, Anderson, all these crypto oligarchy billionaires, this is what they believe. And they have taken over the government, and now they're bending the knee. And now these folks, just like the Nazi industrialists in the past, are perfectly fine paving the road, literally, for American fascism, as long as it benefits them. They get their tax cuts, deregulation. They crush those pesky workers. What's happening in Amazon sites, folks? Those 7 Amazon sites for the first time ever, a coordinated what? Strike, because these people have the worst conditions on earth. Well, you can't have that. Bezos can't have that. Crush them, right? Washington Post, you can't have a cartoonist who defends free press and defends freedom of speech. And she did what, Danielle? She resigned. She resigned. She wasn't like Joe and Mika, rich people who do not need to work another day in their life, who took a private plane and went down to Mar-a-Lago and groveled at the feet of Donald Trump. This cartoonist, they do not get paid that much, literally said, I would rather resign in defense of free speech and free press than bend the knee. So we need heroes like this. This, I want to say this. Anne Telneus, I believe that's her name. These small acts of resistance, with words or through force, as Frederick Douglass said, they add up. They add up. Sometimes all it takes is one person, right? There's a reason we remember a Rosa Parks, a Frederick Douglass, a Martin Luther King, a Gandhi, right? These small acts of confidence, these small acts of courage, being, let me put on my English major hat for a second, Herman Melville's Bartleby the Scrivener, right? I prefer not to. Small, quiet disobedience right? Not being a cog in the wheel, not being mini Eichmanns, not being bureaucrats who go along the way. This is what throws sand in the gears, Danielle, and this is what starts, if you will, revolutions. Not violent revolutions, but revolution of the spirit, revolution of the mind. At least saying, no, I will not bend the knee. You are an authoritarian. You're attacking our freedoms, and I refuse to submit. And not only do I refuse to submit, I will not give you my knee, my voice, my hand, and I will not give you my money. You can take anything. You won't take my voice and my spirit. And that's something I wonder if Bartleby the Scrivener is as gay as Moby Dick. Andrew Kohler, English major. Okay. Sorry for my little rant there, but I just felt like it's important juxtaposition. This cartoonist who now is out of a job, go subscribe to her Substack, look at her courage, and look at Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Tim Cook. Sorry for my rant.
In order for fascism and authoritarianism to take over, you need the consent of the people. And consent can look like apathy. It can look like deciding that this country, regardless of its imperfections, is not worth fighting for. And what will happen, and what has always happened, is that it will be the small groups of brave people who, as Waj said, will throw sand, dirt, anything into the cog, into the wheels, in order to slow the machine.
Mm.
And like I have been saying, all of us are not going to survive. That's the thing that I think that is very hard for people to wrestle with, that fact. And Waj, the only thing that I will push back on you and say is this: there is no such thing as a nonviolent revolution.
Mm.
Revolution starts in our minds, but mankind is a violent group. And so there will come a time, and it may take devastation. In World War II, it took 6 million plus Jewish people being executed. It took teachers, academics, people of color being executed for years before the world sat up. And decided, oh, maybe we should do something about this. We are at a place right now where the U.S. is signing yet another $8 billion deal with fucking Israel.
That's wild.
To continue, because apparently they haven't hit the 1 million murders of Palestinians yet.
Mm.
So we got to go full fucking steam ahead there.
They need more weapons.
So you have to understand, folks, it is not just about listening to us and feeling hopeless and sick. The purpose of democracy-ish is to wake people up, is to inspire you to action, is to say that the reason why these oligarchs are moving in a coordinated attack against democracy is because they are afraid of the masses.
Yep.
They are afraid of all of us. It's why they work overtime to pit community against community, right? So that, because they know that if we recognize that the common enemy that we all have, that is the barrier to us accessing the American dream, is the greed of the fucking 1%, then they do not stand a chance. So we have to move outside of what I refer to as the lottery mentality of America, which is that everyone is one fucking scratch off away from being fucking Elon Musk. Folks, that is a lie. And the idea that if you just work hard enough, then you'll be able to catch up. These motherfuckers didn't work hard. They are working off of inheritance. They are working off of white supremacy. They are not they did not start at the same starting line. So to believe that somehow if you just grind hard enough, that if you continue to vote against your best interest, then one day you too will be shitting on a golden toilet, is the biggest joke that the 1% and capitalists have put on America. So we have to dispel with this idea that there is some distance between all of our communities. We all don't have, right, the same aspirations and goals and we don't need them, but we do have a common enemy. We do have a common enemy, and it is greed. It is the greed of the oligarchs. And it is why we remember when they said, oh, let them eat cake, right? Because they do not give a fuck about America at all.
Well, at least Antoinette gave them cake. These people don't even give us cake. They don't even give us crumbs. They take everything. And, I want to give an example, 2 pop cultural examples. I don't know if you follow Danielle. Danielle sometimes is not up to date with the pop cultural trends. She's like, huh? What? Danielle
Something
just
other than news? What are you
she's
talking
like,
about?
what is a Squid Game? Is that a new dish? But it's like the Squid Game season 2, right? That mentality that, I don't know if you've all seen it, but it's on point. You're seeing pop culture reflected where when given a choice of taking bread or scratching a lottery ticket, these poor folks are like, give me the lottery ticket. Because then with one swoop, I will be rich and I will be powerful. And the myth that you talked about is so important, right? Because we actually gaslight ourselves into thinking that Elon Musk hit a triple. He was born on third base, folks. Donald Trump was born on third base. Donald Trump squandered hundreds of millions of dollars that his racist landlord father gave to him. He squandered it, folks. Can you imagine, Danielle, literally being born with a silver and golden spoon in your mouth and still effing up? That's Donald Trump. And he effed his way up all the way to the presidency twice. The game is rigged. The institutions are rigged. And you need reform. And I think slowly but surely, actually, I'll take that back. I don't think slowly but surely. I think rapidly. Because I think we're about to get a really rough, rude awakening. Because look at the chaos even before he's become president.
Yep.
Government spending deal, tariffs, H-1B visa, civil war. The dude isn't even president, Danielle. And I think when he becomes president, I think a lot of those Americans who thought magically they'll be better because they brought this bulldozer into the White House because they have freaking historical amnesia, they'll be like, oh shit. Rich are gonna get richer, poor are gonna get poorer. The oligarchy, unlike before, is openly meddling in elections and I don't know if you've seen Elon Musk. We'll talk about it next week or on Friday, but Elon Musk now, he's like, oh, I did my part with America. Let me now go
moving on
Germany.
to the UK.
Let me go to the UK.
Yeah.
And back in the day, folks, it's always been this way. The wizards behind the curtain, but it was exactly that, behind the curtain. Now they're like, we're going to tweet it out. And what you going to do about it? The hoods are off. I'm the wizard. I'm this weak, pathetic man, but I got all the money and I'm pulling the levers. What are you going to do about it, peasants? And I want to bring another pop culture quote because we quoted Frederick Douglass. I don't know if you've seen the show Andor. Have you seen the show Andor, Danielle?
No.
Okay, I think you might enjoy it. It's the only Star Wars show that I really like, but in the show Andor, just bear with me.
Okay.
Unlike Star Wars, where most of it's like, Jedis and the Force, right? There's no superpowers. Andor is the name of a guy who is living in the authoritarian empire, right? It's the story of like, how is everyone else living in the empire, right? Like, okay, we get Darth Vader and the rebellion, but like, how about the rest of the folks without superpowers? That's that story, Danielle. So Andor is Diego Luna, the actor. He's this average dude trying to survive. And it shows you what happens when the system like betrays you. He's looking out for himself, trying to survive, trying to get by. He gets his money, right? Spoiler alert. And he's like, aha, should I help the resistance? F that. He retires to like his version of like Cabo, right? He's minding his own business. He's got his money, right? And even then, Daniel, because the system is so corrupt, this dude gets caught up, right? He's just literally walking the beach and all of a sudden people start running. He's like, oh shit. Then he starts running. The cop says, why are you running? He's a brown-skinned man. He goes, I was just running because everyone else was running. You must have done something. He ends up in prison. And he realizes, oh my God, we're never going to leave. And that's where he gets radicalized and he inspires a part of a revolution that leads to the prison, right? And he's friends with this young idealist guy. This character's name is, trust me, this is leading to something, folks. The character's name is Karis Nemec. And Karis Nemec is all about like revolution. And he's writing a manifesto. And, Andor is like, you're wasting your time. Nobody cares. You're just one person. You're poor. You're going to get crushed. And before Karis Nemec, this kid, gets killed, he titles his manifesto and he records it. And then it spreads. And I just want to read a line from the manifesto because it was really good writing. It was called The Trail of Political Consciousness. This is from the show. There will be times when struggle seems impossible. I know this already. Alone, unsure, dwarfed by the scale of the enemy. Remember this: freedom is a pure idea. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. Random acts of insurrection are occurring constantly throughout the galaxy. There are whole armies, battalions that have no idea that they've already enlisted in the cause. Remember that the frontier of the rebellion is everywhere, and even the smallest acts of insurrection pushes our lines forward. And then remember this: the imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Remember that, and know this: the day will come when all these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance, will have flooded the banks of the empire's authority, and there will be one too many. One single thing will break the siege. Remember this: try.
I mean, that's it. Like, you, first of all, you got me, and I'm gonna have to try and watch this instead of like a myriad of documentaries that I usually spend my time doing. But that's it. That's it. That is recognizing that each of us need to find what our resistance looks like. Each of us needs to, when we are feeling in our darkest moments of hopelessness, link arms with somebody else who that day is beaming with light. We have got to be our own sources of power if we are to move forward and to get to the other side of what this is. And when I say get to the other side, I don't mean that, again, we're all making it to the other side.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that we can all be a part of resisting the oligarch, resisting authoritarianism, and knowing that, folks, January 20th, Inauguration Day, is going to be, and American flags are at half mast because of the passing of former President Jimmy Carter. But it is at half mast because January 20th, 2025 is when democracy is officially dead. And we have got to now imagine what our future will look like and not allow it to be dictated to us by on high, by people that see us as replaceable parts of a machine. They do not see us as people. They do not see us as their responsibility now that they have ascended to leadership. They see us as dispensable. So we have got to see each other, right, in lieu of the invisibilizing of community by community that they're going to do. So that was beautiful, Waj. Like, absolutely inspiring and beautiful. And I think that that is where we end today, because as we reflect on this 4-year anniversary, knowing that in days, Donald Trump is going to be president of the United States again, we need some serious resolve, some serious strength and nourishment and hopefulness to move our way forward, because otherwise, folks, we will not make it. And that is why community and collectivity is going to be more important now than it ever was before. We cannot allow cynicism to win.
We cannot. I have kids. I can't afford to be apathetic. I can't afford to be cynical. I've said this before: cynicism and apathy, although comforting, are also cheap and lazy. Hope is painful because hope requires work and effort, and it means exposing yourself to pain and disappointment and betrayal, and keeping yourself in the ring and not retreating, right? And it's a good point that you make, Danielle, and I think about a lot, and I've said this many times, right? This whole story of your role in the story, and everyone imagines themselves. If you really think about it, if we're honest with ourselves, everyone is either the hero or the victim of their own story. No one's ever the bad guy. Even the bad guys feel justified, right? Like the MAGA insurrectionists think they're heroes, folks. And everyone imagines that they're the protagonist and they'll make it, right? But even Moses, right? If you're talking about the long march and the long walk, going Old Testament Quran, Moses never made it to Jerusalem. He led the people, but he didn't make it, Daniel. According to the Islamic story, right? Like he led the people, but the people made it. He didn't. And so I think about this often. Like I'm 44 years old. Realistically, there's less years ahead of me than behind me. And knowing the challenges that await our generation and the next generation, I don't know if I'll make it, right?
Yeah.
But if you can plant the seeds,
Yep.
then our children can enjoy the shade and the fruit. And then isn't it worth it? And maybe your role in the story, if you think about it, right? Maybe you're not the hero who makes it at the end and who plants the flag. But maybe our role in the story is to prepare the road for that hero. And that hero would not be able to plant the flag if it wasn't for us and our mentorship. You know what I'm saying?
Field. Yes.
And
Yes.
so I think that's important for people to realize, right? Because everyone's like, if I'm not the hero, what's the point? Every hero had a mentor, right? Every hero was loved. Every hero had someone along the way who helped him out. And so I feel like, I don't know how the story is going to end. I'm just speaking personally and thinking about my life. When you're 44, they say you're in a midlife crisis. I don't know if it's necessarily a crisis, but it's life. You think about it, or you think about time, the end, the past. So, and I feel about, as you and I, we care deeply about this country and this flawed democracy and about making it better. I'm like, all right, here I am in this dumbass, self-destructive country, at least a plurality of it, re-elected Donald Trump. And then I go back full circle looking at the video that we began the show with, the violent insurrectionists. I'm like, my God, man, like this country, we can't have nice things. We cannot have nice things because of freaking white supremacy, greed, and racism. But what do? Do I give up? Do I bend the knee? Or do I find my moments of resistance, hope, and joy? Ann Telneas, Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington Post editorial cartoonist, decided not to bend the knee, and she's going to fight with her pencil. Literally, we will fight with our voices.
Yep.
We will love. We will have our head held up high. The last thing we'll ever do is bend the knee or gaslight or BS. January 6th was not a day of love. It was a shameful day of treason, where traitors tried to overthrow our election and they lost. They might think they won for now, but inshallah, we will win the war. They've won the battle. It's a long game, folks, and you don't know how the story is going to end. And with that, I want to tell folks that we will be here, and we have decided in the new year that we are going to do 2 shows. We asked you all, because we don't have that, like, we're not that arrogant. We don't have delusion of grandeur. We asked you all like several times. Would you like nice children of immigrants? Like, hey, if we did 2 shows, will you come around maybe? And you all said yes. We're like, really? So this is our first live show on Monday, and from now on until you all get sick of us and Danielle gets sick of me, we're going to be live Monday and Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Joining you. Each show, we've seen more and more people stick around. Right now, we have 1,600 people on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, and YouTube. And I have to say this it's because of you and the community that we're building that more and more people are finding about Democracy-ish. As you're watching this on YouTube, if you haven't already, go down and you'll see Danielle's pretty face and add subscribe. I think Danielle started from 0 a couple of months ago, and I think now she's at 10,500.
I don't know, but it's over 10,000. It's over.
We're trying to get her to 15,000 now. I remember when we got to Danielle to 5,000. It was just a couple of weeks ago. We're like, yay! And then we got to 10,000. So we're trying to get to 15,000. The elves who work the algorithms and the machine love it. Press like; it goes a long way. Leave a positive comment or a negative comment. That's okay. And then share it. And then if you go to the right, you'll see a circle with a ... If you click it, you'll see a $ and a heart. Those are donations and tips. You're not compelled to do anything. We're shocked that anyone gives us anything. 99 cents, $1.99, but it goes a long way. And since this is so grassroots, it helps us build the channel. So that's where we're at. We hope you enjoyed it. This was our first Monday show. We went a bit longer than before, but you all stuck with us.
And the last thing that I will say is, one, thank you to our moderators, Deb and Susan, who are just doing an extraordinary job keeping the conversation and the live chat going. I want to thank all of the donations that came in while we were going today. Again, like Waj says, it's independent media, and it is funded and fueled by your likes, your subscribes, and your resources that you're so generous to share with us. And we deeply, deeply appreciate that. Folks, you don't need to have a lot of hope, as I would say on Woke AF Daily. You need but a mustard seed of hope, right? Because you have no idea how that seed will grow and blossom through your effort, through your resistance, through your consciousness. And that by you being conscious and spreading the word of this show, of the work with others, you are waking people up. You are sprinkling seeds as you move throughout. And that will be the garden of resistance that will grow. And you may not be able to pick the vegetables and fruit from that garden, but know that by planting those seeds, by watering them with truth, that they will ensure that roots do burrow into the ground and grow and blossom into something that will be beautiful for generations to come. So we encourage you all to continue to do that, to continue to be in community with us. And a reminder, the Danielle Moodie Show is back today at 5 p.m. Eastern. I am excited to be back live with all of you at 5 p.m. So hopefully y'all don't get sick of me. But I thank you so much for your support, for the likes, for the subscribes. Keep them coming. Share on Blue Sky, on Threads, on Instagram, wherever you are. We appreciate it. And we will see you back here Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern. I am back at 5 p.m. live today, but Democracy-ish is back Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to Democracy-ish. I am Danielle Moodie.
And I'm Wajahat again, snowed in. So no chances of insurrection today.
I know, just busted by the universe. We will be back on Friday, dear friends, if in fact we have a country left. Inshallah.